We begin in the Middle East. In the last couple of hours, heavy shelling has been reported in the southern Gaza city of Rafah. According to the Palestinian news agency Rafah, 8 people were killed by strikes in the west of the city. This comes as U.S. President Joe Biden warned Israel that Washington will stop supplying some weapons if it launches a major ground operation in Rafah. Mr. Biden said he would continue to make sure Israel is secure, while admitting that U.S. weapons had been used by Israel to kill civilians in Gaza. Meanwhile, Senior Deputy Director for the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, Scott Anderson, says the situation in the city has been growing more tense overnight. However, the Israeli military has not commented on this reported attack. Meanwhile, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has confirmed the pause in weapons shipment to Israel. Testifying before a U.S. congressional subcommittee on Wednesday, Mr. Austin said the Biden administration had paused one shipment of high-payload munitions amid concerns about the Israeli military's push to invade the southern Gazan city of Rafah. Despite this pause, the Defense Secretary affirmed that the U.S. remains absolutely committed to supporting Israel in its right to defend itself.
So we're going to continue to do what's necessary to ensure that Israel has the means to defend itself. But that said, we are currently reviewing some near-term security assistance shipments in the context of unfolding events in Rafah. Israel shouldn't launch a major attack into Rafah without accounting for and protecting the civilians that are in that battle space. And again, as we have assessed the situation, we paused one shipment of high payload munitions. And again, I think we've also been very clear about the steps that we'd like to see Israel take to account for and take care of those civilians before major combat takes place. We certainly would like to see no major combat take place in Rafah. And we've not made a final determination on how to proceed with that shipment. And I would highlight that this shipment doesn't have anything to do with the supplemental appropriations that you just helped us get. And my final comment is that we are absolutely committed to continuing to support Israel in its right to defend itself.
And the World Health Organization is deeply concerned about Israel's actions in Rafah. Its Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus says the agency has no plan of withdrawing from the southern city, calling for removal of all obstacles in delivery of humanitarian aid. He also reiterated the need for an urgent ceasefire.
First to Gaza, where we're deeply concerned about Israel's increased military activities in Rafah, where most of Gaza's people have fled for safety. An estimated 30,000 to 40,000 people have left Rafah for Khan Yunis and Deir al-Balah, but more than 1.4 million people remain at risk in Rafah, including 600,000 children. Already one of Rafah's 3 hospitals, the Al-Najjar hospital, has had to shut down, and its patients have moved elsewhere. And hospital staff are removing supplies and some equipment to safeguard them. The Rafah crossing from Egypt into Gaza remains closed, which is a major access point for supplies into Gaza. Fuel that we expected to be allowed in today has not been allowed in, meaning we only have enough fuel to run health services in the south for 3 more days. WHO has prepositioned some supplies in warehouses and hospitals, but without more aid flowing into Gaza, we cannot sustain our life-saving support to hospitals. WHO has no intention of withdrawing from Rafah and will stay and deliver alongside our partners. WHO is coordinating the work of 20 emergency medical teams in Gaza, comprising 179 internationals from 30 countries working alongside 800 local staff. These teams are embedded in 10 existing hospitals and have established 5 field hospitals. They have provided almost 400,000 consultations, performed more than 18,000 surgeries, and added more than 500 additional hospital beds. A ceasefire is needed urgently for the sake of humanity. And WHO calls for removal of all obstacles to the delivery of urgent humanitarian assistance into and across Gaza at the scale that is required.
Meanwhile, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, estimates that nearly 80,000 people have fled the southern city of Rafah since Monday as an Israeli offensive in the city expands. The agency's communications officer, Louise Wateridge, says there's extreme fear from significant bombardment on the city. Palestinians in parts of the eastern Rafah were told to evacuate on Monday by the Israeli military toward what they called an expanded humanitarian area. Israel's attack in Rafah has since expanded from airstrikes to ground operations. That's according to satellite images from Planet Labs. And the Norwegian Refugee Council has confirmed that none of its trucks have been permitted to pass through the Kerem Shalom crossing on Wednesday. Israel said the border crossing into Gaza had been reopened to allow aid deliveries. However, the head of the Norwegian Refugee Council, Jan Egeland, said in an interview that the agency has heard of no humanitarian trucks crossing the border. He added that the agency had a few aid trucks enter Gaza through the Rafah crossing late last week, but since then the NRC has run out of fuel and has no cash to rent a car or trucks to deliver the additional aid. In the meantime, the United Nations has indicated that no humanitarian delivery has been made via the Kerem Shalom crossing as well. A resident journalist in New York, spokesperson for the Secretary General, Stefan Dujarric, called for the unlimited flow of aid into the Gaza Strip in order to save lives. He also touched down on the health facilities in Rafah, saying it could soon become inaccessible due to Israel's occupation in the area.
No goods have come in for our use for our humanitarian operations, either through the Kerem Shalom or the Rafah crossings into the Gaza Strips. We are continuously engaging with all involved about the resumption of the entry of goods, including fuel, so that we can begin managing incoming supplies. However, the situation remains extremely fluid, and we continue to confront a range of challenges, including active military operations. Our colleagues at the Humanitarian Affairs Office tell us that a daily average of 48 trucks and more than 160,000 liters of fuel entered Gaza via the Rafah crossing between the 1st and the 5th of May. We need all of that fuel to sustain our humanitarian operations for the civilians in the Gaza Strip who so desperately need it. Also, our health partners tell us that all key medical facilities in Rafah could soon become inaccessible or inoperable. For example, one of the 3 hospitals in Rafah, Al-Najjar, had to be abruptly vacated yesterday as it was located in the areas subject to the evacuation orders sent out by the Israeli Defense Forces. According to the World Health Organization, this facility has the only dialysis department still operating in Gaza and is a lifeline to 200 patients who need that dialysis service.
And as the fighting continues, dozens of students, alumni and faculty members rallied in support of Gaza at a new school in New York City on Wednesday. They're calling for an end to the conflict in Gaza and for the university to divest from Israeli-affiliated companies. Protesters are demanding that the Board of Trustees hold an emergency vote to break ties with 13 Israeli-affiliated companies. Last week, faculty members voted in favor of a resolution backing the protesters' calls.
is very confident in the way they speak, and I feel like they're not scared to speak. I feel like the problem with society and even like my family, like they're so worried to speak of what's gonna happen, you know, like, oh, we're gonna get sent back, or oh, we're gonna get arrested, or this and that. But one thing about my generation that I can speak for, and one thing I'm very proud of, is that we are not afraid to speak out. We are not afraid to say that this is wrong and that this needs to be changed. I'll not move. Let them arrest me, and because you know what? We're not doing anything wrong. One thing about America is you have a freedom of speech. As long as we keep it peaceful the way it is right now, if they have anything else to say, then that is just gonna show the world how America is set. Because if they're truthful and they're all about liberty, this is just gonna show how, because you've seen it, how Colombia, how they stormed the students when they were peacefully protesting. That just shows you the kind of country this country is.
Meanwhile, Republican lawmakers have condemned waves of pro-Palestine protests across U.S. universities. The lawmakers called for measures to protect Jewish students who are in constant danger due to the violent clashes.
Dangerous and harmful protests to overrun their campuses, putting Jewish students and community members in danger. We will not stop until Jewish students feel safe on their campuses. Again, this is a basic, fundamental right.
College campuses have been the focal point of a wave of anti-Semitism that I've never thought I'd see in America. I've heard directly from Jewish students at our elite universities who have seen anti-Semitic mobs up close, darned in their terrorist scarf while shouting in support of the terrorist group Hamas. These scenes are straight out of the Jim Crow 1960 South during the days of segregation and KKK. The difference is the KKK bigots of my era hid their faces under white hoods. The pro-Hamas bigots today hide their cowardly faces behind face masks. It was my sincere hope that we would have left the past, this hate in the past, but the slow march of Marxism has spread across our campuses like a virus. It has even affected our K-12 system, where our children, as young as the second grade, are spewing anti-Semitic chants of "kill the Jews." Students and activists, teachers, and administrators are up to now have been held with zero accountability. Well, accountability is finally here. The People's House has a moral clarity to call out the anti-Semitic hate and bigotry. As a House Republican majority with committee oversight and the power of the purse, we're going to do the people's will and put an end to this Marxist indoctrinated bigotry. We're putting all options on the table as we demand our educational institutions step up, do the right things, and protect our Jewish students.
Authorities have turned a blind eye as these hateful people continue to destroy property, deface statues, and burn the American flag. There must be consequences. We must respect our nation and protect our schools and our students. This is not free speech, and there are not peaceful protesters in this group. These are terrorists hiding behind masks and using violence, threats, and intimidation to control Jewish and Israeli students.
In a related development, but outside of the United States, 32 students have been detained after clashes with police erupted at the University of Amsterdam during a pro-Palestine rally. Protesters blocked the university building, sitting and standing by it with Palestinian flags and placards. According to local media reports, the Amsterdam City Council is expected to hold an emergency debate regarding these demonstrations on Friday afternoon. It comes after Dutch police clashed with demonstrators on Monday and arrested at least 169 people. Students are demanding the university cut its ties with Israeli counterparts. The Dutch Minister of Education, Robert de Graaf, said it's sad to see the police intervention and stressed that it was necessary for the university to ensure safety amid the protests.